Hey guys, this is Joshua Seth, voice of Ty on Digimon, and you're listening to Anime Secrets.
Hello and welcome everyone to another Anime Declassified episode. Today I'm joined here by Riz because they're starting up a show that a little bit older now, but you know, nothing like revisiting Miss Classics. We are reviewing Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Rizwan, tell me, what do you know about this show before you came into it?
Well, I knew this anime came out on Netflix. Um, I know it's a prequel to Cyberpunk, the video game that came out, in 2021 or something like that.
It came out a while
And
ago.
yeah, time is weird, but I know it came out in the last decade or less. And it was pretty popular as a video game. People were all over it, playing it, and I never had a ton of interest in playing the game. I
2020.
did watch. What year?
2020.
Okay, I'll do your off. That's fine.
That's not
But
bad.
yeah, so I never had interest in watching it, but I did watch episode one with some friends a long time ago, and I don't know, it didn't hit as well for me to keep me going after episode one that first time. I can't
Hmm.
explain why, but I think my opinion has drastically changed in the rewatch I did this week. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts on it. Is that I know the origin, I know what it played on. I watched a little bit of episode one, but
Hmm.
I couldn't keep my its interest in it beyond that. So I dropped off, and I need
Hmm.
somebody to watch it because you said I need to get back into anime more, and well, here we are.
Well, I figured this one would be a pretty good one. It's very shortened, definitely made with more of a Western audience in mind, just because
Yeah,
it is tying in with the video game that came out 4 years ago. And I'm someone who played the video game, uh, basically forced myself to finish the video game because on its initial launch, the game wasn't good. Uh,
yeah,
haven't
I
touched.
recall a lot of controversy, honestly, about it.
Right. It was just it released in basically an unfinished state. There's constant crashes, especially if you're playing like the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions of the game, which were like they weren't quite old gen, but this was also when the new gen consoles were arriving, so it was like kind of that tail end, uh, end of last gen, early into the new gen, and you know, when I knew that the anime was being done as well because they revealed like, oh yeah, we're doing a tie-in anime with Trigger during kind of the press cycle of the game, and so I was like, you know what? Let's my first thing when I first was like gearing up for it, I was like, well, you know what? There's no way the anime can be as bad as a video game, and oh man, the anime it hooked me right away, like in episode one. But that's because I'm kind of a sucker for these kinds of stories, and this is and yeah, the aesthetic of cyberpunk in general. That kind of world, which seen similar in other animes, most notably Akira, like that kind of world, that kind of aesthetic, just always draws me in. So after episode one, I was like, you know what, I'm in. And let's go over that first episode. We kind of, well, no, we don't kind of we are introduced to kind of our protagonist, David Martinez, kind of given his background to kind of build up what he's going to go through for the whole series. And I thought this first episode was, I think that is like kind of the standard how you introduce a character, show what his conflicts are going to be, and then what his actual, you know, kind of sounds weird saying this, but what his character is. What do you think, Riz?
Of episode one and his
Episode.
origin, basically.
Yeah, basically.
So I thought David was a pretty interesting character. Um, at first, I thought he was kind of a prick. I didn't really think he was all that um, interesting of a character. This seemed like a typical date a teenager,
Hmm.
kind of had a chip on his shoulder. But then I start to pick up on some of the subtext in the background, like, oh, he's going to an elite school. Oh, he seems to have a single mother who's busting behind to get him through school, and he pulls a prank because he's getting bullied because he's from a lower class, lower caste, so he can't really make the strides that he would want to make in society because he's literally coming from an disadvantage you can't really overcome in this new society that the anime is set in.
Hmm.
So yeah, I thought his origin of like who he was, where he came from, was pretty interesting, and in some ways, I think it's relatable to a lot of people,
Oh,
myself included, on a lot of like the bullying and just having to deal with societal pressure and all that stuff.
nah. For myself, it's like I feel it because I come from a family of immigrants, so like that talk that his mom had with David, or that David's mom had with him, kind of on the way back after he fries the school system with the bootleg tech he had. Like that is a talk. My parents have given me a lot, and so just like
Oh,
hearing
absolutely.
that, I'm like, yeah, no, I know what David is going through, but at the same time, I know where the parents are coming from, and so like that. I mean, you hit the point right on the head of in terms of the relatability, like just seeing that, and it's like, yeah, no, like the pressures that he feels because sometimes kids of immigrants, there's just a lot put on us. You gotta be good. Sometimes it feels like just being good isn't enough, and you have to perform great. And it doesn't matter. And sometimes, even if you are performing great, there's others who are just always going to look down on you because of where you come from. And like that chip on his shoulder that he kind of has with that, I'm like, dude, I feel that. I lived that in high school as well. So, that's what drew me into the anime right away, was his character. And I'm like, I know this. I've heard that talk. And then kind of the accident happens where they're caught up in the crossfire, and it just sets off this just how can I put it? It just sets off this avalanche effect that goes on with them. And I think what I really loved about the first episode was like that slow buildup of where he just has had enough of like, the bullying, the debt, people talking down on him. And when he, takes that, uh, the Sandeskin unit to the Ripper Dog and says, like, metal me up, he just like wants to finally unleash his frustrations on someone. It doesn't matter who. And I thought that was a great way to end the episode, and I thought that was a great use of music, man, because that song that they put in there, which is the ending theme, just like slowly playing and how he's just like losing his mind. I thought that was an awesome, awesome shot.
Oh yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of things about like 2024 society and culture in this episode that you can't ignore. Mainly the struggles of the lower class to make ends meet. Um, and while a bit extreme, I think the notion of, hey, you're behind on this bill, you can't have your apartment anymore, or hey, we would have saved your mother sooner had she had the right insurance plan. These
Mm-hmm.
are all things that we're facing today in America. And I think that's part of why I was saying earlier that this anime is extremely relatable to the vast majority of people in the world. If it's
Mm-hmm.
not relatable to you, then I'm sorry to say, but you're in that 1% who are lucky and fortunate. Um, because the vast majority of us do not have those opportunities to be able to not worry about stuff like insurance, about medical care, healthcare, and all that, that entire thing, or just like, where would he live tonight? Because now David, I mean, he has to sneak into his own apartment. That's rough. That's difficult. He's, I don't know. I'm assuming here. I don't know his actual age, but I'm assuming he's 16 or 17 years old.
Kind of that later teenage stage, not quite
Yeah,
college age, but kind of older up there. And yeah, when you bring up the point of him having to break into his own apartment, like that kind of, kind of not really beats you over the head, but that scene where he's breaking in again, but this time he's carrying his mother's ashes. Like, that's.
not only that, but to me, it felt very unceremoniously handled. It was very
Mm,
transactional how he's told, okay, hey, your mother's dead. There's no comforting words. There's no, I'm sorry this happened. I'm sorry we couldn't have done more for her. It's more of a matter of fact, hey, your mom died. Here are your options for payment to get her cremated or buried or whatever you want to do. But of course, mind you, it's a cost to you, but we're going to make it cost effective and budget friendly because you're grieving. But the focus is primarily on how can they make a buck even off of their own mistake. And
hmm
that's very typical in a capitalistic kind of environment like what we're dealing with here.
And
Um,
not just so much like, oh, a mistake, right? That's giving them the benefit of the doubt. For all we know, it could have been they ignored her. This, as you kind of find out more and more as the show goes on, and it's the one thing that I gave the game a lot of flack, and I wish I would have actually finished my review on it. But by the time I was done with the game originally, I never wanted to touch it until all of the issues were fixed, which by all accounts, ever since they released the latest DLC that came out last year, Phantom Liberty, like the game is in a very, very stable and playable state. But the world that they kind of set up, this not just capitalistic, but just like very brutal, very owned by corporations world that they put out there. And credit to the
yeah,
original table RPG guy who created this world, because that's where kind of everything comes from. Is a table RPG that started back in like the 80s or 90s,
makes
and
sense. Yeah.
yeah, and so just like I love that the show just kind of like goes in on it, doesn't hold back, and just shows you like, yeah, corporations run all this. And the show and the video game both did kind of a great job on that. And that's the one thing I hoped was going to be able to carry over from the video game into the anime. It was like at least show us like the ridiculousness of the corporation world that it's in there. And that the first episode did a very fantastic job. And so
Yeah.
he gets the skeleton put in, and we move on to the next episode, or he doesn't get it put in at the end of episode one, rather. The doc, he barges in, and then it ends. And so when he gets that put in there, because the doc says, what the hell, let's do it, and that looked painful.
Well, again, he's looking for his own way to make money, and he is looking at his very expensive tech, and he's saying, "Well, the kid's not going to be able to survive with the tech for long, so I can get the tech after he dies."
Mm-hmm.
So, again, this is all about how to fill the bottom line because even the doctor, I think, is not in a very high class environment. He's in kind of lower rungs, but
Oh yeah.
he is definitely hired in the Martinez family to be able to put some weight over him, and by extension, the mother before that.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to touch back real quick on something that I feel like I I feel like if I don't talk about it, it'd be a disservice to the relationship of the mom and the son.
Mm-hmm.
But it I could feel the emotion radiate from David when he's given his mother's ashes of like his unadulterated anger and frustration with everything going on around him. Like, okay, literally he can't even see his mother's body one last time, and all he has left to remember her now is a canister with her name on it that allegedly contained her acids. But does he really know that? Does he really know what's in the container? He doesn't. He just has to take it on face value that they did what they said they were going to do. But they've given no indication to me as a viewer that they really cared enough to be that thorough to get the job done, rather than, oh, okay, let's just give him a canister with the mom's name on it. Don't even worry about burning her or like collecting the correct acids. Maybe they got somebody else's acids. Maybe they got some dog's acids. I don't know. But I feel like all of that emotion swirling in his head is what led him to that moment of saying, screw it. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
don this equipment. I'm going to save whatever. I'm going to go forward in my life and take what I want. I'm not going to really worry about school anymore because it's all below me. I'm never going to make much of my life, so why bother?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just felt like I would be remiss if I didn't kind of harp more on that and kind of explain that more thoroughly. But
Right.
yeah,
No, I agree. I agree. And again, like you said, it's one of those things where we 100% sure or 100% cannot be sure that that was her ashes. Could have been another person's ashes. Could have just been dirt. And
it could
leading
have
to
been
that.
a bunch of people's asses all in one. You don't know.
And again, like all that compounding leading up to that scene where, like, just in his eyes, he just has this effort moment. And I guess one other thing I want to touch on before we move on to the next episode: are you watching sub or dubbed right now?
I am watching subbed.
Okay, I'm watching it dubbed because I saw it subbed the first time.
Hmm.
Saw it subbed when I was flying from Mexico back to the U.S. So those 10
Okay.
episodes really made the flights go by rather quickly.
Yeah. So going back into my memory archives in my brain, I think I watched the first episode dubbed back in 2020 or 2021.
Hmm.
Um, so I figured, okay, let me try it sub because the group of people I normally watch anime with when I'm hanging out with them, we almost always go with the dub. So
Hmm.
I figured, okay, what the heck? I know I've seen this episode before. Let's try it subbed and see what happens. And I think the more I think about it, I think the reason I couldn't get into it the first time is because I'm not good with group setting watching an anime as a group.
I
It's
gotcha.
more of a solo activity for me.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I can feel that. I know sometimes when I'm watching animes with some of my groups of friends, sometimes there's just conversations that deviate from it when you're trying to watch it, or sometimes I just can't deal with like multiple people
Yeah.
talking, so it's harder for me to get into it. So I think just like being able to watch all of the episodes on at once for me really helped out.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
for myself, just like going into the dub episode, just like hearing the mom just go like again, it goes back to like the relatability and kind of hearing the speech she gave to him about like I'm trying to work, I'm trying to give you the better life that you deserve. Like just like hearing that mixed in with like the Spanish and English dialect that uh you know a lot of, again, this is
Yeah.
coming from like the Hispanic background, like that's what really uh really kind of gave it a little bit more touching, a lot
Yeah.
more relatability. So for myself, I'm just like, I already saw this sub, let me give the dub a chance. And so just like hearing that is uh you know made me smile a little bit. But we go to episode 2 where he gets the tech put in him, like he's biting down on that piece of wood while the surgery is going on. And we get to one of my more favorite scenes where he just starts beating up the bully.
Yeah, and I think that scene is pretty cathartic because that's his first time where I think he feels even a small slither of control on his own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also very interesting that the bully happens to be like the son of some, I don't know the exact title, I forget, but it's like some kind of governor of the school or something, some
He's not
important
a,
figure.
he's not the governor of the school. He's an executive on the company that runs the school, Arasaka, which
Okay.
the Arasaka company is kind of like the big villain in of the kind of the franchise. They're like the one of the big corporate basically entities that a lot of people deal with. I know in 2070 the game 2077, you go through the tower to take it down at the end, and so like Arasaka is just like this big overwhelming presence. They run most of the entities in there. They control most of the medicine, most of the tech. Like they're just a giant overarching conglomerate, and the bully's father is like one of those guys who's on the board, and so like he's a bigwig essentially.
Yeah.
And after he beats up the bully, full on caught on camera, gets expelled or gets expelled, but has this like moment of catharsis. But as soon as he gets that catharsis moment, like I love how almost instantly he realizes I fucked up. What am I going to do now?
I mean, yeah, like he has nowhere else to go. He doesn't have an apartment really. He has to sneak in every time he wants to go in there. His mom is gone. He
Mm-hmm.
has no way to make money. He doesn't even know how his mom is making money to send him to school, which will
Mm-hmm.
become pretty important, I think, in episode three. Maybe it's episode, I don't know. It
It
becomes
is the
important before the
next.
end of this podcast, though.
I mean, you can maybe like get a hint of it, uh, like because you see that she's been smuggling tech. Because like when he sees the unit in there, it's in his mom's jacket.
Yeah,
Um, so like he could, like it tells the audience that she's probably been taking things and selling them off to the side. Like that's kind of like the first major hint. And
yeah.
so he's kind of just wondering, thinking, okay, how am I going to move with this? And so we get introduced to our secondary protagonist, Lucy. She's attempting to pickpocket him, and uses the suit's tech to basically super speed his way to get her to prevent her from robbing him, essentially.
Yeah, and I think Lucy's a very fascinating character because she's so, in my opinion, very multidimensional.
Mm-hmm.
On one side, it seems very flirty, but very confident, very snarky, kind of giving that air of I'm better than you, but I'm going to use you because you have something I don't have, and you're useful to me in this moment. On the other side, at least I'm left wondering. Maybe I don't know about you, Miguel, but I'm left wondering: does she see him as an equal to become friends with, and she saw something in him that he doesn't see, and that's why she bothered to give him the time of the day because that could be the beginning of a real friendship down the line? Or is he just using him for the tech? It's hard to tell at that moment in time in the beginning when they first meet. Um,
Right.
so for me, it's kind of a difficult um, trying to figure out who she is, and I think that silence of trying to figure her out is what makes her very interesting to me because she is kind of mysterious. She is kind of an enigma. So yeah, I think she's it's a very interesting character.
Right. And for myself, like again, this isn't like, oh, I've seen the series, I'm giving my opinion. No, this is like from when I first saw her, I'm just like, something's a bit fishy here, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But you just don't trust everyone in Night City. But I did like kind of how she took him on and started training him a little bit, because it was more like not so much saw him as a friend, but a combination of took pity on him and could potentially, because she was just stealing from people pretty easily. So when she saw that there was someone who was moving faster than her, she's like, all right, I feel bad for this kid. He kind of seems lost, but I could also use him. And that little stealing montage I thought was pretty cool. And then we find out that he has a bit of a tolerance for it, but using those kinds of cybernetics does come at a kind of physical price. And even though it was stated earlier in the episode, he has like an unusually high tolerance for it because the tech that he put on isn't supposed to be used by normal people. That is like military tech that is supposed to be used by people who have trained and are used to tech like that. And so they see him as a potential test subject. And even though he does have a high tolerance, like there's still a threshold that it just starts to mess up your body. And we see him reach that threshold. And I'll give the animators this: they do a good job of kind of showcasing like the after effects of it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a pretty cool thing that they're able to do that. Also, props to the animation team. I don't know, when I first saw the animation like in the trailer and screenshots and whatever, I was kind of like, okay, whatever. It's the new age anime. It's decent looking. But I think watching it, you get more appreciation for it, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah, the animation is
So,
gorgeous.
yeah.
Animation is absolutely phenomenal, and I think it just keeps getting better and better as kind of the episodes go in.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and so she takes him back to the doc, who charges him for the immunocompressants. And she again a little bit of takes pity on him and invites David over to her house. And we get again another favorite thing, and another point I'll kind of like praise Cyberpunk 2077 over is the two things I thought that game did really well was the world design. Night City felt like phenomenal, and then the music in the actual game. And so we get the little montage between them as Lucy kind of tells David, like, "Hey, this is what my dreams are," and they, play that song. I really want to stay at your house. Uh, just like that's just a great, great scene. And then we get, what we all kind of were expecting happening at the happening at some point, which was the betrayal.
Yeah, I kind of figured it's a betrayal coming,
Hmm.
but I was assuming it would come later because I thought she would gain his trust fully and wholly and then backstab him. I didn't think it would come that quick, but also it makes sense because they're in a cutthroat kind of environment and she doesn't have time to, spend doing this. She has to move on to the next mark and make her deal. So
Hmm.
it makes sense, but it wasn't what I expected. So that was interesting to make, to see it happen in that way for me.
Right. And just like that punch, he wakes up, he sees the gang of Edgerunners there, and she's just like off to the side with a cigarette with like this cold look, like, why did you trust me in the first place? And that's
Yeah.
how the episode cuts out. And it was at this point, for my first time view, where I'm like, all right, on to episode 3. I like the intro, I like the ending songs, but I'm like, yeah, if I can save myself 4 minutes and just jump into the next episode and see what happens next, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I listened to the opening a grand total of one time in episode 2.
Hmm.
I did not listen to the ending because no, I had to get to episode 3.
Right.
So even right now, I don't really know if I know what the ending song even sounds like.
It's the same song that played when David was just like having that mental breakdown after his mom
Oh,
died.
okay. Okay, yeah, then that's
It's
cool.
it's a bop.
So,
And so,
point of reference for me, because I've never played the game,
mhm.
do we have any overlap with the music and the OST?
Yeah, so the song that played while they're on the moon, that's in the game. like, and it wasn't even put. It wasn't one of those where, oh, we'll put it in there after the anime to promote it. No, that's like one of the many songs that play on the radio
Okay.
station. And there's a bunch of kind of like the background battle themes that play in the show that are also in the game.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, like I said, the music in Cyberpunk 2077 is pretty phenomenal. Like when
Yeah.
it was nominated for best music, I'm like, listen, if it was going to be nominated for anything, like that is the one I would advocate for it. Did I think it was going to win? No, there's a lot of really good music in 2020, but uh, the Cyberpunk soundtrack, both original songs composed and original compositions for background music, battle music, it's really good.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the music. I mean, so I I don't think right now, I watched the first three episodes last night.
Hmm.
I don't think I can recall the melodies off the top of my head right this moment. But I feel like when I'm watching it, the melodies are pretty awesome. The songs are pretty awesome. I just have not yet gotten them ingrained in my brain yet to the point where I can be like, oh, here's the cyberpunk music. I can just play it in my head without
Hmm.
needing any kind of like YouTube video or whatever to help me with it.
Right.
I don't know. That's just where I'm at right now.
Hmm. And so
But yeah,
our Yeah. So the third episode starts like immediately, right where the second one uh, ends off, where the gang is confronting David because they think he's the one who stole the tech, and we find out that the reason why David's mom had that tech in the first place is because she was going to sell it to these guys, and she's someone that they know very well because she's done business with them several times, which kind of answers the question of, well, how was she able to afford to put David in the first place? It's Night City. You got to do whatever you can to survive in it.
and see, I thought the way that she would make her money would be with more immoral, questionable, societal type things that you probably wouldn't look too fondly on. Not gonna say the actual job title because I would hope at this point, with me saying all I did say, you and the audience know what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, that's what I was assuming is that she was a friend of people, and maybe she stole the tech that David now wears while with a client.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is her full time gig. She smuggles equipment, she sells it to the highest bidder, and
Not so much
makes a good deal of
rebuilds
money.
it. Not so much rebuilds it, but smuggles it out from any loose cyber from anyone who suffers from cyberpsychosis. Just kind of takes the tack low key because, as we kind of see, like they don't really care about the under people. They
Yeah,
primarily focus on the wealthy. And so some psychotic guy breaks down, what's it to them? Nothing but parts. So they're not really going to keep tabs on it. And so, I
right.
mean, she by all means was just an organ harvester. But again,
Yeah,
in this kind of like unfair world of Night City, like it's one of those things where you got to do what you got to do with it. And so she's been doing this for a while, and so we get and this gang led by Maine, who we get introduced to here, kind of they look, and since he says like she died, they're like, our condolences, but we still need that tech from you.
yeah,
And so David is like, you know what? Let me show you that I could be useful to you. And because Maine had that friendship, that established relationship with David's mom, he's like, you know what? I'll humor you, kid. Show me what you got.
yeah.
And one thing I want to kind of give a shout out here is the dub casting for the show did a really bang up job. For those who, on the video game side, Main is voiced by the actor who does the current Jax for Mortal Kombat. So very, very good work he's done. And, his voice kind of gives this like authoritative, but kind of like fair authoritative figure. At least in the dub, I'd have to rewatch the sub to kind of get it, but or to kind of compare. But I want to give a shout out to the voice acting at this point because I think they've done a phenomenal job. And so when he's going over kind of like the plan that how they're going to do it, I thought that was a pretty great scene.
Oh yeah, like the entire planning of that was pretty brilliant in my opinion.
Hmm. And we get to actually one of my favorite kind of, we touched on it when we were talking about episode 2, but like, the animation just like starts to pick up because it's almost in a comic book style how they're going over the plan. And we see, even though this gang of Cyberpunk seems to be like a little bit more fair, we still see kind of like their ruthlessness on how they're going to get their plan done, because we
Yeah,
see them straight basically lay the means to kill a fighter in the ring, uh just so the guy can lose the bet to make it easier for them to hack. Like, just showing you like, yeah, these people may be more fair, but that doesn't necessarily make them good people.
they their kind of relationship and the way they kind of work together. I know it's probably not a homage to this, but I was reminded a little bit of Ocean's 11 in that movie franchise.
Oh, dude, when they're talking about the plan and how they're gonna go over it, like, it felt like it was just taken straight out of a scene from Ocean's 11, which I think
Yeah,
they probably were. Now, I don't know if this is confirmed, but like, I think that's just basically a shout out to it.
I mean that's what I think. I don't have any proof of it, but I can only hope that they're making homage to that because honestly, Ocean's 11 was one of my favorite movies growing up. The other two after, eh, but definitely that first one was the goat to me.
Right. And the plan, as as most things or most shows that have plans, goes Ari. And so as they're trying to kind of hack, the bodyguard gets called into work on his off day.
Yeah,
And so we get this fantastic chase sequence on the highway where David is being chased by a group of by two gang members that the bodyguard put out to basically kill them for stealing his car. And we just get this phenomenal chase scene that occurs. He's activating his tech, which basically slows down time or allows you to move through time and to kind of drive around through traffic to try to evade them. Like, I thought that whole chase scene in the latter half of the episode was just great.
yeah, definitely. I thought the entire chase scene was awesome. I thought um, the way they improvised a new plan was pretty brilliant.
Hmm.
Um, I also enjoyed the moment when the customer came out and was like, "So I didn't ask for the car. Why the hell is the car here? I told you to be discreet. It's not being discreet." And they're like, "Hey, stuff happens. Deal with it."
Right.
And it, to me, that just kind of was a confusion because I was kind of thinking that the customer that hired them was a bit higher up in the echelon of people, and you wouldn't want to talk that way to them. But it speaks volumes that they're comfortable enough to do so, meaning either they don't give a darn about authority, or they're a little bit higher in the food chain than we like to think they are, maybe with some mid-level manager or somebody that's higher ranked or something that helps them out.
I think it's more or less that, not so much that, because the fixer who set up the job, you know, he's not necessarily like on a level of a corporate executive, but he's still pretty, like, he still has some notoriety. It's I'd equate it more similar to like how a mob boss isn't on the level as like someone on an executive board, but they still have power. And they may be wanting to make moves to get into a political position of power. And so the mission that they get sent on is to basically get some driving powders of driving powders driving patterns of the executive, who just also happens to be the father of David's bully. So it's kind of Tanaka. So we're kind of going a little bit full circle early on here. And so his whole thing is just like, you got me the patterns, but because of the incident that you've done, they've changed. So this data isn't useful anymore. But Maine, he's like a father figure to his men. Basically, he's like, listen, you're not going to talk to us like that after the work you paid us to do. You just told us, be discreet, give me data. You didn't say how discreet, or how we have to deliver it to you. So as far as I'm concerned, we got the job done for you. And that scene was made to showcase like kind of like Maine could be that older brother father figure that David could have, because it's the first time that someone has actually stood up for him. Because even when his mom was with him, like, she was always apologizing on his behalf, like, not so much kissing ass, but just like sucking up, being like, no, we'll do whatever it takes. you know we ask for forgiveness, we do all this. This was the first time that David saw someone going, you back off him, and this is how it's going to go. It's the first time that he saw someone not bending over to appease, someone in power.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good thing for David to see right now because he needs to see that so that he can hopefully grow to where he needs to be by the end of the season or by the end of the TV. So I don't know if there's a plan for anything after this ends, but I don't know.
I
We'll
believe it
see.
was I believe it was meant to be like a one shot thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it kind of not just shows them that, but we also kind of start seeing that, even though David and Lucy kind of had their like scuffle in episode 2 and the first part of episode 3, we see that David still is just like looking at her and, still has an interest in her, which, David, I don't blame you. She's a very attractive character and definitely has that kind of mysterious personality that can drag a lot of guys down.
I sip it.
And and so yeah, those are basically the first 3 episodes, which I
Yeah.
really like. And the reason why I wanted you to kind of do this in kind of these smaller batches is because like each batch kind of does its own thing. The first 3 on this one basically establishes the world, establishes David, establishes our supporting cast. So you kind of get everything in there, and then you're like, okay, so I know what I'm set up for the rest. So what do you think so far in your first 3 episodes?
I I enjoyed it a lot. I was so when I walked into this, I'll be honest, dude, I was like, Miguel's got this crazy idea. I don't know if I'm gonna actually like it. It's gonna be like a little bit of a chore. I'll see. I'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. And by the end, I was like, huh, Miguel strikes again. Good job. It's a good TV show. I enjoyed it. Um, I was definitely getting more interested and ramped up at the end of episode 2, entering episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I see like at the end of episode 3, it. I don't think it's gonna be like a. I don't think I'm gonna call it an arc, but I definitely think it's like a mini arc. The first 3 episodes that kind of help, like you said, sets up the world. Because I think going forward, we're gonna start entering another mini arc as we, kind of dive more into the story, get more into the world. So I thought that was all pretty good world building, and the way that they organize is pretty good. So that way you're not like being hit all in the beginning in episode 1 with all this lore that you don't need right away.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you had all the exposition in episode 1 and 2, it may not have been as strong as it is right now. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
a really strong opening 3 episodes to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, as the episodes roll on, I'm just gonna get you a little. I don't want to spoil too much, but a lot. The stakes are gonna go up. It's the action, the drama is gonna get more ramped up. So kind of be prepared for that,
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
definitely.
And
Yeah,
yeah, no, we'll check in here next week for episodes 4, 5, and 6, and we'll
yeah.
kind of get your thoughts on this. And you know what? It's good to be back on the full swing of reviewing anime. I know modern anime is a little bit harder to get into, but this one had, to me, hit a lot of the beats that something like a Cowboy Bebop did, which is why I thought, okay, I think Riz will definitely
And
enjoy this.
see, that's something I'm glad you brought up because that's definitely been a problem of mine with a lot of the newer anime is that just the title exhausts me of most of the new anime. It's like I don't know, I'm going to probably mix up a couple of different titles to make my own title, but my girlfriend is a dungeon keeper in the world of whatever and sees in night. And that's the whole title of an anime, dude. Like that's a real title of something that could happen. And titles like that just exhaust me. And then I don't know. To me, it just seems like we're reusing the same story over and over again every anime season with slight variations here and there. So I was getting kind of burnt out and bored by it. But Cyberpunk is none of that. Has a concise title, which is not the most important thing in the world to me, if I'm being honest. Like I'm being a little facetious when I say that the title exhausted me, but the point stands that a lot of these animes seem to run together, in my opinion. There's some good stuff out there that I've seen recently. Sangrila Frontier is great. I like what I've seen of Solo Leveling so far. So, there's some good stuff out there, but this is the first one to really get my interest in this kind of way in a while, and I'm glad we're doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Because, like I said, my feelings on the game aside, I love the world that the game presented. And so for myself, being able to see another, not another version, but another story set in that same world, I was always willing to give the chance to. And, I know I might be hyping this up too much, but like, the show just like hit every note perfectly. And the
I
first three
mean,
episodes
didn't
are, what's up?
I was gonna say, didn't this thing get like 100% on Rotten Tomato or something?
It has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It won Crunchyroll's Anime of the year it released.
Hmm.
The dub voice actor for David won Best Voiceover Performance. So yeah, it is an acclaimed show. Like I'm not gonna pretend like
Yeah,
it's a underrated, understated art. No, no, no. The other reason, like I said, it's like by the metric of critics and audiences, it is a great show, and I think it's one
yeah,
that a lot of people can easily get into. The one thing that it didn't bug me, but I know some people are way more prudish than I am. This show has no qualms about the sex content in it. Like, there's nothing illicit, but like you get some images.
no, there's some explicit imagery in the first episode,
Yeah,
with the video call and the download.
yeah, with the brain dances.
Um, yeah, so I think no, and I think that's one of the things that when I saw it the first time, the explicit scene, I was like, okay, hold up, what?
Yeah,
I didn't sign up for all that, but
I'm just happy
I'm
they kind of keep it brief because I would think
yeah,
extended things of that would take away from the show.
it
Uh,
would, and that's what I was kind of concerned about. Is okay, how much of this are we going to get? Because if it's like every 10 minutes or so, I'm not going to be in for this for too long.
right? No,
Not
no,
because I'm prudish, but because I don't want to be dealing with that kind of imagery all the time when it's not necessary to the plot.
right, right. No,
Um,
and
because that doctor in the first episode, he's also in
yeah,
that kind of scene, and I was
hmm
like, okay, did we really need that? What did that add to all this?
right,
Except to show that this society is very easy to please yourself.
yeah,
That's all we get out of that. But yeah,
no, for
other than
sure.
that,
But yeah, it's the first three episodes are just like a great kind of like, again, like point we made earlier. It's like a great way that it introduces the characters, introduces the world, and introduces not introduces, but basically shows you like the kind of conflict that he's going to be going through for the rest of the show. And the
Yeah.
way they did that in essentially 90 minutes, I thought is just a masterclass in storytelling. And so
Oh yeah.
the next few episode or the next few episodes build off of that, and I just can't wait for you to watch it. But
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that'll wrap us up for tonight. Another episode of Anime Secrets Declassified. Riz, sign us off.
All right. We'll see y'all next time. All.